Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to start work just over there on what I like to call the West Wing. That is a section that I built way before I started any of this area over here. So when it was initially designed, the proportions, just the general size and layout of the buildings weren't really set in stone. So as this build has progressed, it's really kind of just been lost over there. So what I'm going to have to do, unfortunately, is to really just rip out this whole back section, start from fresh. The one thing that I know that I am keeping is this tower, this shape, this arrangement of how I've built the circle, and how it lines up with the Great Hall, and then everything will be built around that. Now, the reason why I'm ripping all of this out is because I need to first figure out the layout for the buildings up top, and then I can figure out how I need the ground to wrap around those buildings, and then what I can do with the space underneath it. Alrighty, so before we jump into the video and actually get some building done, I want to take you back into Hogwarts Legacy as I did a few weeks ago. But this time I'm going to show you a little bit about the West Wing, because that's the bit that we're focusing on. I just want to show you what I learned by revisiting it a little bit, and it's crazy how if you're not paying attention, you make these assumptions, but it's a lot different than you think. First of all is the Grand Staircase Tower is indeed a lot bigger than any other building in Hogwarts. I would say the next is the Astronomy Tower, the Central Tower, but even those, while they make up for it in height, they don't really make up for it in width at all. One good thing is that this building over here, let's call it this sort of connection building between the Grand Staircase Tower and this tower on the right, is it's actually a lot shorter than I thought it would be. I talked a lot about in last week's video that I wanted it to be around 20 studs long, but from this I can actually say that it probably doesn't have to be anything more than about 12 or 16, which is good because that saves us space. Now what I also noticed is this tower here on the right is, not only is it substantially taller than the viaduct towers, it's also got this really cool balcony feature, and this upper sort of turret that if I can go up here you can see. It's really cool. There's this whole sitting area out here, and this cool looking dome, and while it is a circle at this bit, then it does cut into we'll go around from this side, it does cut into the quad courtyard, and it becomes sort of like a large oval on this side, somewhat like the Astronomy Tower. So I'll see how I might work that out. That might be something that is that I choose not to do, simply if I have the space or not. But this tower should be a lot more exciting than I thought it would be, because if you remember how I built it to date, is I've just been using those standard wedge panels, and yeah, I'm completely ditching that because it's not going to work. Instead, what I'm thinking is, because this building is so much larger than the viaduct towers, that the width of the tower has to be larger as well. So I'm going to try to use the same sort of technique that I did for the Astronomy Tower, the curved back, using the 1x2 bricks and the 1x1 round bricks. Now, lastly, before we jump into building, because the game decided it's nighttime, is how you get to this West Wing. Now, I thought that sort of all of it would be pathways and such, but no, not really. It's all rocky, and there's tons of trees out here, and you can't really get there. But there is a pathway that leads from this huge area of all these different levels and staircases, which is really cool, and I have to build. And there's a staircase that runs down the side of the Grand Central Staircase Tower, and then curves around, and here we are through this archway. And it doesn't go out to this tower on the edge that you see here, and that you see right there. So that's going to be good. That's going to be able to allow me to bring a little bit of nature into the heart of Hogwarts. And then lastly, we have these really cool bridges that I'm showing you right here, that connects between the viaduct tower and the what you call it, this right-hand tower, or the West Wing. And these should be really cool. I assume they'd be made of stained glass or something. And that's just a way to connect the two sides of my Hogwarts mock, because of course there's the main Hogwarts bridge, but apart from that, actually the two sides of the castle are completely disconnected, except for that tiny little bridge right there. So there you are. I just want to give you a teeny bit of a tour. Hopefully you've been paying attention to the architecture and such of these buildings. They're a lot bigger. They're not as well detailed, except when you get to the top right here. but we're going to see how that turns out. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that little Hogwarts Legacy clip and it was able to refresh your memory on this area of the castle. But in any case, if I were not to move the grand staircase tower at all, this is the arrangement that the west wing of the castle would look like. This is approximately the distance or the width, the length. My goodness, this is the length of that corridor that I'm willing to do. And with shortening this central bit slightly, this is where that tower would go. And you remember that there was those sort of stained glass bridges in between the two. Well, you have about one stud to do that. So you can see that this is obviously not working. So I'm going to try a few different things out here. I'm going to move it back. I'm going to move it forward, play around and see what works out. Additionally, something that I didn't particularly notice when I was doing this initial building is that this side of the castle, including the west wing, is on a much higher cliff face than that side of the castle. So obviously I was aware with that. That's why it steadily goes down to about 3 studs over there while it's 12 over here. But what I'm thinking is that I want to actually lift this entire area up onto the same level as the courtyard, or close to it if that's not entirely possible, just like it is at the back. Not only will that make this area feel distinct from this area, another big reason is because, well, this area lacks the number of buildings that this one does. So in order to sort of match it, I would like to give this a little bit more height. And what that will also do is the towers, these two, the grand staircase tower and that turret on the right, I can save about 6 rows of actual building to gain that same amount of height. So it means that these buildings can be even taller, and I'll be able to achieve having that building being the tallest in the entire mock with a little help from the rock face, because right now it's not really even half the size of the astronomy tower. So I would have to double the height of the main building, add a roof, and if I make the rock face taller, there we go. So initially I was trying to figure out a way to redo this area without touching this bottom dungeon area, but I was finding that very hard to do. So instead, I've ripped it all off and we're basically starting fresh as much as we can. What I was able to salvage, and I will show you later on in the video, is that the position of this staircase and therefore the grand staircase tower above it remains in the exact same place. So that's great. What we've got to change here, firstly, is if we're raising this entire area to meet the courtyard level, which is only 3 studs actually, so it's not that big of a change, but it's going to make a few differences. Is we're going to have to rip up this outer wall over here. I'm going to have to rip up this section because this tower is about right there, so it's overhanging, so I'm going to have to curve the rock wall to about right there and make a nice little stream that cuts between these two, as opposed to like opening up into a lake, as you can see here. And then over here, you can see a problem where the bridge is going across at this level, which is the same as this was. But if I raise this entire level, it now means that the bridge is just going to hit a rock wall. So I need to move this wall to essentially right here. So the rock, instead of cutting in, will just kind of go straight from this point. And then what that will mean is at this point on the bridge, I'll put like a little staircase of such to get up the 3 studs to this higher level. I know that's really hard to explain at the moment. You'll just have to see as I continue building. But what we're going to do right now is redo the outline of this rock wall and build it all up by 3 studs. And if that's what's looking good, we'll keep going with that. If not, we'll change things up. But I'll cut to once I have some progress done. So, not only have we made a huge mess over here, I have done a decent amount of progress on this rock wall out here, and I'm taking a little pause from that because I'm trying to work out how I want to redo the interior now that I've got a slightly different shape going on, and, well, I'll just come around. I do also believe that I mentioned a few weeks ago, might have been last week, that instead of using dark gray, as I was for the dungeons, I was instead going to be using these 2x4 dark tan and also nougat bricks. And the reason being is because I have so many of them from a Takodana mock that I did around 5 years ago. I'll put the card up in the top right corner if you want to see what that looks like. I'm very proud of that, but in any case, I have many pieces from that, and I thought, well, it's a good place to use it. That's why I've used so many of them underneath the Great Hall here. So the whole dungeons will be dark tan and dark nougat, and it will give a little bit more warmth than the dark gray did. But in any case, I'm trying to work out how I might lay this out. So the Slytherin common room, I know for a fact that I want to be a lot taller, just because any scenes from the movie or even the game, Hogwarts Legacy, they've got very, very tall ceilings, those huge windows looking into the Black Lake, etc., etc. So I want big windows there, or lots of height. So that's why I'm keeping it over here, where this has to be level with this side of the Great Hall anyway. The other things that I want down here is Potions Classroom, and I'm thinking the Hufflepuff Common Room, because why not? Those are three major scenes that I think make up the dungeons. Anything else is really not overly necessary. So Potions Classroom, Hufflepuff Common Room, Slytherin Common Room. The question now is, which one should I give precedent to? The Hufflepuff Common Room, because it doesn't come up in many movies or anything, I don't necessarily need to give it too much space, but the Potions Classroom, we see it in pretty much every film. It's a big focus of the game as well. We know what that looks like. I have the parts to make it, so that's going to be slightly bigger. These are the 4 entrances, 1, 2, 3, 4 off of this center staircase that goes down to the dungeons. Now, I have one right now going into a corridor that then goes into Slytherin Common Room, and I have one going this way. I don't have one going that way or that way. I could make some use of this space, but then the discussion becomes, well, how do I build this so that I could probably see into it? Because there's a lot of buildings sitting on top of it, and it's very hard to get to that space. So unfortunately, this area back here will probably never be seen. So we're going to focus on right here, whatever we can see out of these back windows, in fact. So whatever needs to be here is going to be quite long and skinny. We're looking at about 1 hour's worth of progress right here. And a little disclaimer before I go into any of it, I'm having a very hard time. I'm not too good when it comes to designing interiors, but because the rest of the castle in this section goes above this area, it really means that I have to finish this, or at least get the bones of it in place before I do anything above it. So I'll just walk my way through it, and then I'll try to explain why I'm not terribly happy with it and how we might try to fix things in the future. First of all, what I did is I raised this entire back open archway 3 bricks up so that it will match the new level when it's the same level as the courtyard over there. That's great, because it now means we have a lot more space to look into the interiors with. The other things that I've been doing is, of course, the layout. So what I've got here is I've doubled the height of this staircase that goes down into the dungeons. This is pretty accurate to what you would normally see. It's, you know, a full spiral almost on itself. And that's now level with that. And we're going to have to raise all the walls so it matches this level. I've got a long corridor going on here, and then you enter into what is the basic bones of the Potions Classroom. And, oh, I didn't know I could do that. That's cool. I just turned it on 0.5 if you're wondering. We'll go back. Yeah, so here's my Potions Classroom, and the whole idea is that I don't want it to be too deep, because I just want it to give the essence of the Potions Classroom. I want it to have a few tables, some gurgling potions, Snape, perhaps his desk, and then that's the entrance way here. Now, I do know that normally it has a door, but I might decide to not do that, just because I kind of like the look of this large archway here in the middle. But we'll see how that goes. The corridor you won't really see, but if you're right here, you can see glimpses into it, and that's the whole idea. Then we have this area here. This is the second doorway. It will come out into another corridor, which will be 1, 2, 3 bays long, and then we'll have a Slytherin common room at the end. So in essence, once it's completely floored up, what you will be able to see is the Potions Classroom, which is 3 bays and a little glimpse into a corridor. You will have a corridor right here at the front, which I'll be able to put that more details of the statues and stuff that you normally see on the walls, and then the Slytherin common room. So I suppose my main gripes are that it just looks a little bit plain. It doesn't really look like you see in the movie. Don't really know what I'm doing down here. You know, I've made all this space for just a hallway, but I'm not sure how that will turn out. So this is just illustrating a natural point in building where I just don't know what to do. So what am I going to do? I think I'm going to start off next by tiling the floor adding a little bit of detail, trying to really bring some life to the interior a bit. And if I'm still not satisfied at that point, I'm just going to sort of build up the walls to the necessary level, continue with what goes above it, and then revisit this later. I will say that I am generally happy with the space that I've allocated. It's just really the execution of what I do with this stuff down here. My mind is very much on the upper castle at the moment. That's what I really want to get back to. So I almost feel like I'm doing this just to get it done so I can get back to the castle. So I might have to give in to that for a little bit, just get enough of it done to put things on top of it. And then once I have the time and the want, I go back and I really give it the attention this bit needs. So with that, let's get some more going on. And boom, the West Wing is finally taking shape, and I'm loving the way that it's turned out. If you were to rewind to the beginning of the video and looked at the sort of before and after, I think you'll definitely agree that this looks a lot better. Namely, I would say, is because the added height of the rock face just makes it look a little bit more impressive, and it ties this section over here in with the Great Hall, which before kind of just looked like an outcropping of its own. So I'm happy how that turned out. I'm just going to go around to the back, and I apologize for the bad lighting. It's getting close to nighttime, so the sun's going down. You can see how I've lined up this building with this building as well. So, oh yeah, I forgot I could do that. Instead of it being exactly right here in the middle, I've just stepped it back slightly, and you don't really notice that from the front, and it just allows me to, well, push this a little bit further this way, because before it would have sat about right here. So that allows me to have a little bit of space, and I will try to figure out a way to put those small bridges in between, but that will be something for later. Come back around the other side, and I'll show you this bridge over here. So this is called the Viaduct Bridge. It's, you know, the iconic bridge in Hogwarts. Obviously, it's missing the entire bottom half, and that's something I will do once I get my Bricklink order, which hopefully should come next week. You can see how I just did a very simple few steps on this side to deal with the level change. Now, that's not what it looks like in Hogwarts Legacy at all. You've seen the clip from earlier in this video where there's a whole multitude of staircases, but I'm trying to refine that a little bit. I'm just going with the one right there, a little courtyard area, and then we'll have just a pathway that leads over there, and I'll integrate some trees later on. There is a slight level change right here, and it steadily just goes up, and that's because this is level with the interior of the lobby, and then that is level with the upper side of the Great Hall. And while this will be very hard for you to see in this sort of poor lighting, this is a little bit of view of how that whole area is held up. There's really no pattern or structural design involved. It is just I have put them where they needed to be, and it's steadily grown into that mess back there. And that's the good thing about having these rooms, is that the front half looks really nice, and the back half you don't have to worry about how messy it looks. This will be the Slytherin common room. This is that hallway area. You can kind of see the effect it will have, and then as you come down here, here will be the Slytherin, or sorry, the potions classroom. Once I've roofed it off, it actually does look a lot better than I thought earlier, except when you look up and then you just see that it's green. So I'm not sure how I will address that, if maybe I will just never, ever show it like that. That might be what we'll do. I'll show you also very quickly the interior here, how that looks. So obviously this is yet to be plated off, and that's mainly because I haven't done the walls down there, so I don't know what I'm doing with this bit. I want to leave it open until that's done. Then I'll plate this off, and it's not really going to affect any of the building at the moment. The interior at the moment, though, so obviously that main spiral will continue all the way up to the top. Hopefully, if I can find enough of those pieces, I might have to order them. And at some point, I'm going to figure out a way to transfer from this sort of tunnel to this large open space. And we'll experiment with that in later videos, but that's how that's going right now. So another cool thing that I want to draw your attention to is that building back there, the right-hand tower. Now, I've talked about this before, but the level change between these two halves of the castle is give or take around 6 studs, or 6 bricks. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because you can see with, you know, the 10, maybe 15 rows of bricks, how easy it is for me to make that building taller than that one. And so, of course, that building is wider, but the fact that it's on higher ground is going to make it look that much more imposing. And I think just the variety of having this side of the castle taller than that side will help to balance the whole height change, because apart from the grand staircase tower, I don't want this side to feel much lower than that one because of all those towers over there. So I was trying to get a nice balance, but what that means is when I double that building in height, it's going to look huge. So I can't wait to see how that turns out. However, I'm still waiting on parts, so that's where it's going to stay for the moment. What you can see right now is I've roofed off that that building in the middle that has the large archway in the middle. And I think it looks too short, and I also think that the steepness of the roof, even though it matches all of these, might not be appropriate for that building just because of how narrow it is. I might go with using some of the steeper roofs like I was talking about using for all these spires. So we'll experiment with a bit of that. I also wanted to show you is this sort of gorge that goes in between. I think looks a lot cooler now than it did when it was sort of just like looked like a little lake, if you will, right in the back. Right, so the next step over here is to try to figure out how I want to lay out these outdoor courtyards and passageways between the West Wing and the Great Hall and such. Back there in the Hogwarts Legacy game is essentially a garden. It's a garden space. There's some fountains, some walkways, some benches, some general lookouts and such. And I will get to that, but that's mostly grass and covered in nature. And I'm going to focus on that once I've figured out what to do with the Slytherin common room underneath it, because obviously, well, I need a roof first before I can start building. So we're going to focus over here. Now, the main issue I've got to figure out is how I want to firstly lay out the courtyard. You've seen this courtyard in its current state since basically week 1. And the reason why it looks like this is because this is the actual courtyard space, and then this would be roofed off right here, because that's what it looks like in the game. However, they're dealing with a lot more space than I am, so I'm going to try to figure out how to deal with that. I might just make this entire thing the courtyard, we'll see, and then I've got to work out some passageways. So it's the next day, and I've been experimenting a little bit on this general area over here. You can see that I've done something there, but I'll start over here. After I finished the bridge in the last clip, I decided to sort of experiment with how I want to do the wall leading to that archway over there. I had quite a lot of these curved brick pieces just from building all these towers, and I have a lot left over that I know I wouldn't use. So I thought, you know, let me try to be a little bit more fun, introduce some curves here on this outer wall. I think it's turned out quite nice. It's very simple, of course, just 2 bricks high, running the length of essentially the rock face. But I think it looks a little bit more organic than just doing because it would have to zigzag anyway. I've just extended the tile work over here just to see how that might look like, and I've been using some of these, don't even know, corner tiles to help line up with the wedges there. And then, of course, as we come over here, you can see I've done quite a bit of progress on the courtyard of the Great Hall. So the way that it works in Hogwarts Legacy, and I believe I actually said it wrong in the last clip, is there's an inner courtyard, and then there's a walkway around the edge, which is what I've sort of tried to demonstrate here. So what I've done is I've used these jumper arch pieces, the same that I've been using here and on all of these spires and on the roof lines right there. But now I've actually used them as a bit of a railing, and I've put an entrance here because that one will zigzag a staircase down to the boathouse. And then there's another one on this side that joins up to this larger courtyard over here. And then the inner courtyard to the Great Hall has just a simple entrance at the front, just kind of like you would see in the movies. Of course, those are a lot larger. And I've experimented with the design. Really, this is just an archway, an arch piece where normally a window goes. And I've used those same jumper arch pieces with a little pyramid cheese slope on top. And I think that ends up looking quite nice. And there we go. And of course, that lines up with the actual building, and we have the walkway that runs all the way around. So overall, I'm quite proud with how this all turned out. Now, the last step in this video, before I call it quits for week 7, is to actually update the boathouse. I've never talked about this in any of the weekly segments, but this is a boathouse that I designed way back when. It's all right. That's as much as I can say. However, as always, Lego seems to come up with something cool every once in a while. This is, well, obviously it's a squash box, but this is their boathouse, and I have to say that I quite like this a lot better than my own. So I'm going to snap my fingers, and we're going to see how that looks in place of my own. And there you have it. That's the official Lego boathouse. And I think you'll agree that looks a lot better than what was there before. Let's put it side by side for comparison. Mine was quite a bit bigger, but lacked the sort of detail. I like the sort of wooden spire on top. In any case, that's there just for the moment. I'll have to refine its placement and how I integrate it with the mock, because it does have sort of like navy blue plates and stuff, which I think are really cool, but because I've not got anywhere else, that might have to go. I've also experimented just very, very quickly with a staircase, because obviously you have to get down to the boathouse. Now, normally it's this really winding, zigzaggy staircase, but I think for the purpose of the scale of this mock, just having a simple straight then 45-degree staircase works well. Obviously this one does not match up at all because it's too tall, but like I said, that's just a prototype, so I can get an idea of how it would connect to the main castle, and that will be refined in later episodes. Well, in any case, that just about does it for this week's episode. We've gotten quite a lot done. We basically ripped up the entire back section over there, reconfigured it, and raised it about 6 studs, so the west wing of the castle is really taking shape. We've redeveloped, or developed, since it wasn't really there in the first place, the courtyard for the Great Hall. Done a little bit of the boathouse. Well, I didn't do it, just built the Lego set. Looks cool anyway. And we've integrated this whole bridge into this west section of the castle, so it's feeling a lot more connected now. I've got a bricklink order coming next week, hopefully, which means I'll be able to get a lot of progress done on the roofs of the castle, as well as some other things, which I'll just keep quiet until next week. We've also got some work done on the dungeons. I'll give you one last look. This is what a mess looks like, even though I cleaned up last week, or the week before. There's the dungeons. Of course, still empty, but those will be filled up in weeks to come. But I'd like to thank you all for sticking to the end of the video, and hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode, and I'll see you all in week 8. Bye, guys.